Prevelo bikes. Today we're going to be showing you how to install our freewheel and brake kit on the Zulu One. In the brake kit, we're going to have a fully assembled rear wheel, a complete rear brake that is already bled, a replacement grip, a handlebar shim, 3 zip ties, and then the tools to install everything. We have a cutter. This is just to cut the old grip off, a set of cutters to cut the zip ties, a 10mm box wrench, a Phillips head screwdriver, a socket wrench with a 15mm socket, and a 5mm Allen key. The first step is we're going to remove the right grip. All right, so just going to use the box cutter and slice the grip. If you slice it too deep, you might scratch the handlebar, so you can take a couple of tries, be careful. And you can see I nicked it a little bit, but that's okay, the new grip's going to cover it all up. Next step, we're going to remove the rear wheel. The first part about removing the rear wheel with a coaster brake is actually unbolting the coaster brake strap. So the 10mm box wrench holds the nut on the back side, and just unscrew it. Just slide the screw out. Now we're going to have this little metal strap. This just bends. Just bend it, pull it off. Go ahead and unbolt the rear wheel with our socket wrench with a 15mm socket. Remember, lefty loosey. Once everything's loosened, you can see the wheel slide forward and the chain drop. You can pull the chain and pedal it forward. And just go ahead and slide the rear wheel out. Now we're just going to go ahead and slide the new wheel in. Loosen the nuts just enough to where it will slide in. Now we lift the chain, sit it on the rear freewheel teeth, put it on the teeth for the chain ring, and if you pedal the bike forward, it will just pull itself into position. We'll pull the wheel back, and we're just going to snug these by hand. Now our goal now is to tension the chain and make sure that the wheel is straight. I think the easiest way to do this is to pull it back and start with the non-drive side. So as I'm doing this, I'm making sure that the wheel is straight in the frame. I can see the gap on both sides. I'm just going to check the chain tension. We want to be able to pedal smoothly without hitting any tight spots in it. And right now, it's not too loose, not too tight. So I can put a little bit of pressure on the wheel. Tighten this up. Now the rear wheel is installed. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and install the brake. Personally, I like to install this caliper first at the back of the bike and then work my way up. If you do it the other way around, it really doesn't make a difference, however you feel comfortable. Okay, so when you get your rear brake kit, it's going to have 2 bolts installed in this adapter. Just go ahead and unscrew those bolts. There's also a little clip between the brake pads that just pulls out. Slide that on. Slide the bolts through. So we get those finger tight. So these little grooves, you can adjust where the caliper sits. We really just want it to be dead center. You will know if it's wrong because you're going to get some strange rubbing, and if you have to move it around, just slide it until you no longer hear a rub. You don't have to wrench on these like crazy, but it should be pretty tight. And then these top 2 bolts, just go ahead and leave them a little bit loose for now. We'll do this at the very end to adjust the brake. Now we're going to go ahead and install our zip ties. So on the frame, there are 3 cable holders. So starting at the rear, you'll see the little hole at the bottom for the zip tie to slide into. Just work front to back, or back to front. Okay, with the 3 zip ties in place, we want to bring the brake lever behind the front brake. I like to run this through the back so that way you get more travel as the handlebars turn. Now we have this small shim to adapt the brake lever to the small handlebar that we use. This shim has a lip on the outside, and if you look at the front, you can tell the orientation of it. But you want the lip to face towards the stem. So slide it in from this side of the brake lever, and just go ahead and slide the brake lever onto the handlebar, and for right now, you can just leave it loose. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and install the right grip. We use isopropyl alcohol to do this. If you don't have that, you can also use a little bit of hairspray. We just spray a little bit of this into the grip. It helps us so you can just slide the grip on. Yeah, it will squirt out of the backside and get all over you. It's going to be a little wet at first, so the grip will move around. Don't worry about that. It'll dry probably by the time you're done with this project. Good. Okay, with the grip installed, we're just going to go ahead and tighten down the brake lever. So when you do this on the back side, there's a small 5mm Allen key. So you want it all the way up against the grip and try to get it at the same angle as the other brake lever. So and again, this is one of those pieces that you don't want to over tight. Just get it tight enough to where it doesn't move up and down with any force, and you should be good. If you over tighten this, you can break it. Now with the full brake system installed, we're going to go ahead and adjust the rear caliper. Now what we're trying to do here is basically center the brake rotor between the two pads. So this is a very delicate adjustment. You only have about 1 millimeter of clearance between the rotor and the pad. So when you do this, as long as you don't have a major drag on it to where like the wheel is spinning and stopping, you're okay. A little bit of rub really isn't a big deal. All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and adjust the brake. These 2 bolts are already tight, so we want to focus on the 2 bolts on top. The first step is to just pull the rear brake to where the brake's actually engaged, and just snug both bolts. Sometimes you're going to get really lucky and it's going to be totally perfect right now, but in this case it probably won't be. Now we have a little bit of rub. So if you look in there, you can kind of see which side is rubbing. So right now I can see it's rubbing on this side, so I'm going to pull the caliper out just towards me just a little bit, snug it up. When I can hear just a little bit of rub, I'm going to do the same up towards the front, loosen it, pull it towards me just a little bit. Everything seems okay. Go ahead and tighten it down. I did that pretty quickly. If you struggle and it takes you a few minutes, don't stress out. It is a delicate adjustment and it might take you a few minutes, no big deal. Okay, the last step is just to cut these tails of these zip ties. Now, I have these super sweet flat cutters. If you don't have these and you cut these with something normal, after you snip the ends, you're going to want to hit it with a file. It can end up as kind of a sharp point and you don't want your kid to scratch their leg on. Alright, so now with the whole system on and operational, we just want to go through and just do a quick safety check, make sure that we didn't miss anything. So the bolts on the brakes, just make sure that everything is nice and tight and secure. And the rear axle nut to make sure the rear wheel is tight in the frame. And the last bolt, to make sure the brake lever is tight on the handlebar. We're good. So everything pedals, brake stops, no wiggle, good to go. That's installing a freewheel and brake kit on a Zulu One.